So it's another fantastic Wednesday night, and I'd like to welcome John Wilburn in place of Professor P, who has the evening off. So we just docked his pay. That was all.
I'm
And
happy to be here.
yeah, and we paid John with Professor P's pay.
You
So
make 1 cent less than normal. I will make 1 cent more than normal.
expect a dividends check from YouTube's what is it AdSense any day now. Okay.
That's it.
All right. Well, we've already got a pretty good full house in here tonight. So we got Lars from LP94, Lars and JB. And Lars was here number one at 425. So he's been waiting for this show for a while. And then Mr. John Wilburn had to throw his deuce up. Tonight we got One-Eyed Cat, Bruce Coltgen, Fabrice Mod Repeat, Blue Grit Garage, Mama M3. You got to change that back to Colleen Tebow.
It's M cubed or M to the third power.
Okay, M the third power. Yeah, so M cubed, you got to go back to your normal thing. Michael Schmidt, Buff Del Campo, Miss Catchy, Michael Schmidt, Danny Boyd, Tall Garage is in the house, Buff Del Campo, Clint Street Machines, Buick Smith. Let's see, we got any new ones. Val 360 Jimmy is here. I think that's Max Wedge Dick Dastardly just made it in here. It's changed now. It's Max Wedge Dirk Dastardly.
It works.
So, yeah. And then Dave Norman is here, and RC Industries is here. So, yeah,
Cool.
Welcome to another Wednesday night Tech Talk Live, to where we can hopefully help you out with something that maybe has been boggling your mind, or you've been spending too much time screwing with, so you don't get stuck in the deep holes of the automotive YouTube community.
Danny Boyd has an interesting tech question right off the bat, and it's something unusual.
I saw it actually.
Yeah.
It's the very first one, right? So
Yeah,
first
before 7 Central. His tech question was before the live even started.
Well, then it's definitely going to get answered. Let me tell you what, it's on the first cue card for the night.
That's it.
Yeah. So Danny Boyd asks, tech question number one: is it safe to use a stud welder on a 2019, 2021-ish Jeep Cherokee, or should I disconnect the battery or take some other precautions? Thank you. Well, here's the rule of thumb on that. Today's electrical cars, with EFI, and they're much more dependent upon the electrical system than old early stuff. Old early stuff, you used to be able to get away with not doing anything. On a newer car with EFI, the rule of thumb is just to go ahead and disconnect it, just so there is no issues. Because if it fries the ECU, it could actually, like, some of them you could total the car if you fry the ECU, right? Because it's just irreplaceable. They don't make them any longer. I heard Nissans were pretty bad about that, where a computer was only good till, like, say 2007 to 2010, and then you had to have a new computer, but the wiring harness wasn't compatible. So it's easier just to disconnect the battery and weld away, my friend.
Now, if you're looking for a stud welder, this is something I don't have experience with, but I've been reading up on the things because I'd like to get one. Bondo Billy shows a comparison of stud welders that use copper windings versus one that uses aluminum. And he said that a lot of this metal is harder to work with the ones you get from, say, Harbor Freight, because of the coil that's in them. They don't get good spot welds. They don't get a good, hot, quick spot weld. And so it's something you may want to consider. It may help you with that thinner modern metal to use a stud welder that has the higher end windings. And you can find that on his channel. He's got a short about it here in the last couple of days.
Well, that'd be a pretty good show.
Yeah.
I don't have a spot welder. You guys saw what I did last year when I boogered up the trunk lid on my 63 Buick by straightening it out. But I just welded nails directly to right straight to the body, and then pulled them out with a hammer once they were hot. So it isn't any more complicated than that. We don't have to make things more complex. You work with what you have, right?
Well, and the older the car, the more you can get away with.
Right, exactly.
The thicker the steel, the more, grace and leniency and creative you can be.
Clint Street Machine says, tech question: how do you avoid buying one of your rare short list cars when it's cheap and in good shape?
You're asking the wrong people, Clint.
Yeah. This community probably has the worst problem with buying that stuff.
Yeah.
So whatever I'm going to tell you, probably should do the opposite, right? This is how I would look at it. Like, usually what runs across my mind is what I have already in inventory, and can I make it work with a majority of what I already have, right? And if you can't, even though it's a good deal and it's in good shape, you pass on it. And I know exactly which car you're talking about, Clint, because you messaged me yesterday. It's this Opel Manta. It was clean, $700-800. I don't remember how much it was, but it wasn't very much, and it was super clean. I even had to ask him, like, "What kind of car is that?" And he's like, "It's an Opel Manta." I'm like, "My God, I don't think I've ever seen one." But yeah, if you're willing to do all the work, sure, jump all over it. But I know you, Clint. You're capable of doing all the work. It's just the timeline to do all the work, and I wouldn't try.
Here's my thought. If you really want to avoid buying it, take what he's asking and take that money and pay it straight onto any debt you have. So let's say that I'm just making up numbers here. Let's say it's $3,000 and you have $1,000 debt and a $6,000 debt. Pay $1,000 off, put $2,000 on the $6,000 debt. You'll regret it because now you don't have the car, but you put the money towards something you know you have to pay. And if you don't have any debts to pay down on, then just buy the car because you're debt free and you should. How's that?
There you go. That fixes just about anything. Yeah. I hate getting slapped in the face with some logic usually that wakes me up from my slumber of automotive junk building. So let's see. Dead Pedal Motors Garage, or Dead Pedals Motors, says a friend of mine dropped off a 92 Yukon 5.7 TBI towed to my house with no start, no fire, no fuel pump. I jokingly told him it was a $30 fix. Any guesses? 92 with the TBI fuel pump. Yeah.
No fire, no fuel pump.
Or, well, it says no start.
So
it's
no
generally
fuel,
the fuel
not
pump
getting
on
any fuel or any spark?
I'm assuming it cranks. It just says no start. And I had a 92 Caprice, what they call the bubble wagon. This was a problem I chased for a while. Was back in the early 2000s. I literally pulled it out from behind a barn, put 4 tires on it, put some gas in, and went to expected it to run, and hit the key, and it started up. And I drove it all around the place, loaded it up, brought it home, and I couldn't get it to start as soon as I went to take it off the car. I couldn't figure out what was going on. And those things have such a finicky fuel pump system on them. It's not just the pump, it's the relay that'll go bad sometimes when the pump goes bad. And the best thing to do is just cut your losses right there. Buy a relay, buy a good relay, like a GM replacement relay. Don't buy a Magnesium one because they fail. And then go buy yourself a fuel pump, let the entire drop-in assembly, and then generally fix it.
Find another relay that's got the same amperage and switch it out first.
There's 3 of them actually on the cowl right in a row.
Yeah.
And so you could move them around,
right.
But the good rule of thumb is, replace that relay when the pump goes bad, because you don't know how bad the pump or how bad the relay is caused by the pump.
I'm just saying that'll show you for sure if it's the relay. That's a real easy way to test the relay. And then, like Dallas said, get an extra relay, but don't get this Chinese garbage. Go to the junkyard and find a good one, clean one, and get a factory one.
Yeah, that's the best thing to do, is literally just go find something similar, fuel injection system. They're all going to have the same 3 solenoids right there on the cowl. Or relays right there on the cowl. Just pop 1 or 2 of them out, stick them in your pocket, and take them up there and pay for them.
I saw a guy one time said, well, I could carry a piece of coat hanger wire and I could stick it in there between, 86 and 87, and I could get home. I'm like, dude, you're making it too hard. Just carry a relay. I mean,
Let's see. Michael Schmidt says, if so, welcome these guys to the best tech show for the price. We are the best tech show for the price. We keep the lights on here, and that's about it.
The price is it's 2 hours of putting up with us. That's the price.
2 hours of pain. Yeah. We bring the pain train. Okay. Buick Smith says, Dallas, John said I could make a trophy for the best sleeper car at the No Name Nationals. Excited to make it. Hey, man, we've done that for the past 2 of them where people have brought
trophies. To present it. We want you to present it. So when we do our award ceremony, we'll call you up to present it.
The other thing to do, if you're going to make this award, just make sure it looks like something that would go along with the best sleeper car award.
Yeah.
Like a bottle of No-Dos or something.
Well, just just be there to present it. If you can, if you at all can, be there to present it.
Miss Cat G's asking if I'm still off the smokes. No, I'm a loser. So I'll probably defeat it here again soon, but we'll see. Let's see. Max Wedge Dick Dashley says I burned a computer out using Jump Start on a battery charger. Battery terminal is loose on the 98 RAM, and it's easy to do it. Danny Boyd says the Opel Mantas are a good-looking car. It was a good-looking car. Well, it's in Buick Smith saying that's one of my dream cars. Hey, get in contact with Clint because he's got one locally that's clean as a whistle, and Clint's not going to buy it. See it, and Danny Boyd says Opels were not known for their reliability. That's cool. Just take some newer or some different American iron and drop it in there, and it's probably fairly reliable at that point.
I've heard people will talk about, well, I remember when those Vegas came out and they were such junk. Those engines, those transmissions. I'm like, dude, nobody cares about those engines and transmissions. They just want the car.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Chuck,
and
that Opel came in them.
Yeah, that Opel probably weighs like 2,400 pounds.
Same thing. Yeah. Same thing. No one cares about any of that stuff, Danny Boyd.
Yeah. Clint's saying the Opel with anything else swap is where my head is. Hey, man, I know where you can get a 300 Buick to put in that sucker.
I bet.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Oh, and the voice of the No Name Nationals has dropped in here. Mr. Ron Ward.
Howdy, Mr. Ron Ward.
Yeah, how you doing this evening?
Hey, Clint needs to have an Opel with a Mopar engine in it and call it a Mopel.
A Mopel.
You could do something different. Okay, I'm not going to suggest a 318. How about a 2.2 turbo with a 904 behind it, like from a D50? Because you can get the 904 behind the 4-cylinder in that.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yep.
Dead Pedal Motor says it was actually $30. Fuel pump relay was fine. Jumped it. Oil pressure sensor will not give power to the distributor or fuel pump if the seals blow out. Fire right up. I did not know that. That's weird. I had some weird stuff like that on my 85 Suburban where the oil pressure sending unit allowed power to go up to the choke and run the choke. It had to have oil pressure for it to run the choke, which is, I don't know. I guess it's so that when you turn the key on and you're sitting somewhere and it's not running the choke. But Ron Ward says that the No-Dos should be awarded for the worst reaction time. Yeah, I agree. I probably will get 2 or 3 bottles of that this weekend, or No Name Nationals weekend. Let's see. Man, everybody's digging on this Opel Manta now. Ron Ward's thinking, I think that the Opel Manta would look really good in Calvin's garage with a Turbo 4200, just saying.
How much you think that's what he put in it?
I bet it'd be the North Star, Turbo North Star.
They have a North Star is the Mercury version of the Fairmont, whatever that was.
Oh, the Zephyr.
Yeah, they have a North Star in that.
There you go. Chris Cox says it's not a Mopel, it's an Opar.
Okay, if you say so.
Michael Schmidt says my pops worked at the Buick dealer in the late 60s and early 70s. Buick sold the Opels as baby Corvettes. He said that they were very good in general, just too small for tall guys to be comfortable. That's the Opel GT. The one he's got is it's like a 2-door. I guess it's a 2-door sedan. And it's not the GT like you're thinking of. It looks more like to tell you the truth, it kind of looks like a 70s. What is it? 70s Challenger, the Mitsubishi body style Challengers.
Oh, yeah, sort of. I can see that. You know what? That comment reminds me from the movie Boogie Nights when that guy was trying to get a car that looked similar to the lead character's Corvette. So he got this Datsun Z and painted it the same color. That's what I kind of think of when I see a baby Corvette there.
Well, see, and that's the Unfortunately, that actor, I can't remember what his name is, but he's in like a lot of movies. He's been in a lot of movies, right?
The one who had that was Philip Seymour Hoffman that had the
No, no.
Dotson, but you're talking about
Oh,
Wahlberg.
what's that?
You're talking Mark Wahlberg, right?
Well,
He's
right, but
been in a lot.
I'm not talking about the actor, the main actor. Who is his sidekick guy? Um, Not Philip Seymour Hoffman who did the cameraman, but it was
Right.
the other guy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's like
Riley?
in yes, Riley. And
Yeah.
he's in like tons of other movies that's like family friendly. And every
Yeah.
time I think of that guy, I think about how he was a 70s porn star. And it's so funny that he did the Mike Honcho bit in Boogie Night, or in not Boogie Nights, in Talladega Nights. So
He's just a good actor.
he's a good actor.
I see that that 80s Mitsubishi based Challenger, and I think I'm scrolling for a photo of one right now. It's got anyway. If I see it here, my cousin had one of those. If I can find it, I found everything else.
Oh, Blue Grit Garage is saying extend the body between the front of the door and the rear of the front fender, and you can fit a straight 8. No one else will have one. Yeah, there would be a reason for that. I'd put a turbocharged 300 Buick in it. Is what
that straight 8 would be so ridiculously heavy.
It
No
weighs
way.
much as the car, but
yeah, not me.
Let's see. Clint saying, "Boo, lack of suggestions." Oh, where's that at? Just jumped up there. All right. Boo, lack of suggestions in this crowd. Hey, man, don't get the Opel Manta. You don't need another project.
Yeah, Dirk had the Corvette. That would be correct. Lack of good suggestions in this crowd. You got the best suggestion of all. Take the amount of money you would spend on it and just stick it straight on your debt. If you have a suggestion you want, then go find somebody to tell it to you. He says no like. Yeah, I'll tell you what, we're creative people. We might not have the best ideas, but we got a lot of them.
Mr. Dakota has just popped in here tonight. But I guess one of the things I wanted to talk about was tires. One of the biggest things I saw while doing the AHRA was people's lack of understanding how their suspension works along with tires at the racetrack. There would be stupid things that would happen all the time. Like, oh man, I keep spinning the tires. Like, oh, well, and they would immediately blame track prep was the big one. This track prep sucks. And then you'd have somebody come up there and do an absolute, 5-foot wheelie for half track. And you're like, is it the track prep? And then you go look at their car and the tires are 10 years old. The drag slicks are 10 years old. And let me tell you, those things are like when they're new, when you get them new and they're delivered to your house and you go to pick them up, they ooze some kind of traction compound out of them. They're so sticky when you touch them when they're new. Well, at 10 years, there's not much left of that traction compound to ooze out.
And all of those heat cycles from burnout after burnout.
Yep. Or people never changing them from side to side, or they do change them from side to side and it destroys the directional portion of them. There's all kinds of ridiculousness that happens that you can't really comprehend. But what I did want to talk about was tires that people really don't take into consideration. That's one of probably the most important parts of race car at the drag strip is the tires. You can have horrible suspension, the tire will compensate. You can have the most horrible setup when it comes to instant center, and the tire will compensate. And it will only work up to a point, and then it takes some homework once you get a lot of horsepower, how to make that tire continue to work. But that's one of the things that I would really like to discuss tonight. If you guys are open to the topic of suggestions, it looks like Ron Ward's already in. So
tires, I'm in.
Exactly. But in the drag racing world, that is one of your most important things that you could possibly purchase is a set of specific for drag racing tires. Now there's multitudes of compounds, and it used to be when I was a kid. What was the big one? Firestone had these slicks, the 500s, I think is what they were. And then Goodyear came out with their slick. Let's see. Ron Ward saying the oozy substance is the elastomers in the rubber. As it disappears, the tires get harder and dry rot. Exactly. And it seems to happen a lot quicker on a drag racing slick because the compound itself is so soft. That's what causes them to go bad. So generally, if you get anything over 5 years old and you're having issues with it spinning the tires, it's likely your fault. The tire is just old and it needs to be replaced. But I absolutely think that 99% of the time, almost any traction issue can be figured out by setting the suspension up right and getting the tire correct. There's a ton of things that, okay, for instance, and everyone here has heard, and probably deals with it on a daily basis. Drag slicks, what kind of air pressure are you running them, John?
Depends on the car. I mean, it could be as little as 4, it could be as much as 16.
Okay. I run mine at 15 in my car. And the reason for it is once you get the suspension to work, the tire is literally just connects the track to the car, right? And you get more mile an hour by having more air pressure in the tire. Which lowers ET.
And less rolling resistance too.
Right. The other thing works on the front end as well. The more tire pressure you have in the front end, the smaller the contact patch on the tire generally. So the less rolling resistance. You can almost move a complete tenth by just rolling resistance on the tires. Depends how much horsepower the car makes and how much it weighs. But generally, a rule of thumb is you're looking at almost a whole tenth. So you might have 800 thousandths in the bag or 900 thousandths in the bag, But let's see. Blue Grit Garage.
Hoosiers are junk after 13 passes.
Who said that?
Levi said some small tire guys swear C7 Hoosiers are junk after 13 passes. Yeah, but there's people who say all kinds of stuff. What is your experience with Hoosiers? What little I have has been pretty good, actually. But it depends on the car.
Well, here's another thing, too, that people really don't consider is that when you're done racing for the season, where do you put your car? In the garage? Do you put it up on jack stands and take all the pressure off the tires? That's what you should do. But I see people leave them sit on the tires the whole entire winter. And then you're working out flat spots all season. Also,
bias tires handle sitting around better, but why test any of that?
Well, I definitely don't. As expensive those suckers are, just put some jack stands under them.
I like, Max Wedge Dick Dastardly is right. It's easier to push a car with more air in the tires, yeah. But I like Val 360 Jimmy's question here.
Okay.
Should I run tubes or screws in the rims? My thought is I like to run rim screws, no tubes, and use dishwashing liquid on the inside to keep them from seeping out air if it's a wrinkle wall sidewall.
Well, I think I told you guys last week what I do. I ditched the tubes a long time ago.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose of that is the tube is like a saving grace when it comes to, like, say you cut down a sidewall or something, it'll run back to the pits. But generally, you don't know you cut down the sidewall, and that's why the tube is working the way it is. So the next pass, you end up cutting down the tube. But I had it pull some stems out of the tubes a couple of times, and they were the nice Mickey Thompson pieces. And then I realized how much that tube weighs, because when they mill you a new tube and you get the box that it comes in, remember that tube is going in your tire. And that exact weight, essentially minus the box, is what you're adding to the wheel. Now, rotational mass is the biggest thing that you can take away from a car to make the largest improvement, right? You use a big heavy steel wheel with a tube, and how much does it gain? That might be a nice YouTube video for somebody to just take a steel wheel, load some tubes in it with some slicks on it, go to the track, make pass after pass, and all you do is you got a couple sets of slicks, with aluminum set of wheels, one with no tubes in it, or you just take it back and pull the tubes out and put them back on. But I run the screws and I don't do the dishwashing soap on them. I actually put RTV on the screw so it seals it up and it doesn't leak around the screw head.
I wipe it on the inside.
On the inside of the tire.
Yeah, because that wrinkle wall actually loses air too.
Well, I was told that, oh, you're talking about on the inside of the tire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, and I've never done that before.
Now, one real important thing, if you're going to run tubes, you definitely should run rim screws. Our friend Just Mopar Joe last year, he had a new tube, get the valve stem ripped out of it because he forgot to put the rim screws back in.
Yeah, and see, that's what Val 360 Jimmy's asking. Will they spin on the rims with no screws? Sometimes they will. Yeah,
they'll turn enough over time that they're going to bind up that valve stem and rip it out.
So, and what I do is I use like a semi truck or diesel truck or 3/4 ton or 1 ton truck application valve stem that's like, it's sealed, right? You put it in the wheel, it's got rubber on both sides, you tighten it down, it's threaded, and you just bolt it to the wheel. I think it's called a bolt-in valve stem. But that's what I use on all my stuff, just so you don't have to deal with it, with a rubber one or anything stupid like that. But okay, so D150 is saying, what is the best drag radial out there? And I know there are tons of variables, but what would you buy if you were buying a pair tomorrow? And you didn't, I was just going to say, you didn't give any criteria here because it depends. If you're wanting to drive it to the track on a drag radial, I'm going to give you a different answer than if you were just showing up at the track with a drag radial on,
right,
and off a trailer. Or if you wanted to drive it around on the road and then every now and then take it to the track. But let's see. Ron Ward saying, however, carbon black increases the durometer reading of the tire.
I can see that.
Let's see. I must have missed.
So in other words, for people who are trying to cheat a tire for class racing that need a tire that's got a harder durometer rating.
So Ron's saying here, racing tires utilize less carbon black than passenger tires. Carbon black is used to utilize to stabilize the compound and lessen the loss of elastometers.
That's cool.
And
about it like that.
I'm kind of wondering, is carbon black the same thing as the tint that they put in the tire? Because tires are technically white when they're done, right? Isn't that how that works? And then they dye them.
I know that you've got that enormous piece of white they mold into the sidewall on white letter tires, but I don't know. Ron knows a lot about tires. This is interesting.
It appears, yeah. Let's see. Fan Race Mod repeats says the 10.5-inch tire guys destroy the tires quickly from all the power slipping down the track. And if you haven't noticed, a lot of those 10.5 tire guys, if they're like, you've seen the videos on YouTube where they're on the interstate and they hammer it and it leaves black tracks. That the black tracking is what just hammers the tires. That's it slipping
all the way down the track.
Right.
I got to tell you, the small tire stuff, they just slide around on ice and wreck a lot. And I'm getting to where I like it less and less because of all of what it's turning into.
Levi's saying, I have a set of Hoosiers that only have 5 passes. My Mickeys have over 40 passes on them between my car and the previous owner's Corvette. That Corvette runs low 7s. They are needing replaced, hence Hoosiers. I like the Hoosier because the Hoosier, to me, when I started running drag racing tires, the Hoosier was the affordable one for me, right? Hoosier tires, if you didn't know, didn't get into the drag racing game until like 1995, I guess, 1994, somewhere around there. And they were a cheap alternative to what everybody was running at the time. The tire of the time was the Goodyear, right?
They were expensive.
They were super expensive. They were probably twice as much as a set of Hoosiers. Now, they're probably not so drastic difference anymore. I don't know. I'm not sure. I have not priced a set of Goodyears in a long time. But the Hoosiers never did me wrong. But the one thing I did find about the Hoosiers is they tend to not have as much contact wear patch as the Goodyears. You can't get as many passes out of them as you can a set of Goodyears. Yeah. And that may be where they're cutting the line at. You know, you only get 15, 20, 30 passes. I don't know, a season. I usually run them after one season and then would pitch them.
Dizzy says that his brother-in-law would rub dish detergent inside the slicks. That's exactly how mine are.
Yeah.
Unbelievable how much better they keep air when you do that.
And so Michael Schmidt, it's they're doing it just to essentially fill the gaps.
Yep,
So
it
that it
fills up that
holds.
porosity in there just a little bit.
Let's see. Val 360 Jimmy says, you got me thinking about that last week. Dallas car isn't going. Yeah, I'm glad you got it in my hand.
In his head, I'd say. I don't know.
I don't know. Let's see. Levi's backyard performance is down spot on with the bolt-on stem. I think it's at certain ETs it's required. Someone correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong. I think it is actually anything.
Yeah, I can't remember the brake on it, but you do have to have a
I think it is.
metal valve stem at a certain ET brake. I don't have it in my head, but it's
Most of the stuff happens at the 10 flat 999 brake is where
close to it. Yeah.
Yeah, is or 640 ET for 8th mile folks. Let's see. Dizzy, as you say, Mickey Thompson drag radials are rated the best all around. 55s are also very good. I've seen where the Mickey Thompson, it just depends what you're trying to use them for. The purpose of those tires, they're all going to say for drag racing use only, right? But they're like the BF Goodrich, when they came out with theirs, they were meant for more road use, and they could actually channel water when compared to, because Mickey Thompson is essentially a Mickey Thompson slick with a couple of notches cut out of it so that it looks like some kind of road tire.
So I've always had good experience with Mickey Thompson. I've not had any experience with Nittos, but that's because all the people I know that have had experience with Nittos didn't like them.
Oh, I've never ran them. I got out of the drag radial thing in like 2002 or something. After my first pair, which lasted like 2,500 miles, it was time to go. I'm like, nah, I need something with a little bit more longevity than that if I'm going to drive it on the street.
Ron Ward is showing his old schoolness there with the M&H.
I love M&H tires, and you can actually buy them from Coker now.
Yeah, I think they're great.
Let's see. First Responder Garage says, if dish soap fills the porosity, I'm sure that soap is on the tread, not just the sidewall. Dish soap has been like the go-to product for a long time. How do you think they soap the bead?
I've just never seen a problem with that First Responder, and the tire carcass is not the same on the sides as it is on the tread.
Oh, it's considerably thinner on the side with a lot less bias ply. Let's see. Wheel pattern spacers and adapters, are these safe in general? Asks Michael Schmidt. It depends what you're trying to do. In most racing organizations, they will tell you, no, you can't run them. But there is some aftermarket applications for like off-road that are virtually a billet spacer with a threaded stud. And I don't see where they would be any different than a wheel themselves. But when you start taking a wheel and putting it on top of a wheel, I guess that, there's dualies like that. So, I mean, but I'm not entirely certain. I'm not a big fan of them, to tell you the truth.
The biggest problem with those things is two things. One, people don't run the right studs and lug nuts with them, and they give up a lot of thread engagement usually. That's one. And two, it puts a whole lot more stress on your bearings and on your front end in general, because you're moving your scrub radius out and your contact patch, your wheel moves farther out of line with that lower ball joint, the line between the upper and lower ball joints, and it puts more stress on everything. I wouldn't want to run a spacer on anything unless I had to, and even then it'd be a really conservative one.
Yeah.
I mean, like a 1/4 inch to get rid of tire rub would be it.
Well, what you're doing is adding, let's say, 3 to 6 inches of leverage to that wheel bearing.
Right? Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, have you ever seen where guys put the big off-road tires and they keep eating wheel bearings? And I can't figure out why.
That's the problem. Yeah.
It's exactly why. It's putting all that leverage on those things. So Ron Ward's saying that a friend just, I'm sorry, I got the wrong one there. He remembers when BF Goodrich was the only player in the drag radial world along about 2009. They just fell off the map. And It's because they were too
Competition.
street oriented, right? Everybody was trying to run these radials and radial versus the world stuff and radial prep. Radial prep is a real deal. If you've never seen it, it's like literally like fly paper in a 660 or 1320 horizontal surface. So they were trying to get as much contact patches as possible. In the drag radial and when the BF Goodriches came out, it made them so drivable. You could have a hot rod that hooked on the street, and that was the idea. Let's see here.
Oh man, Blue Grid's friend brought some Mickey Thompsons that were made in China.
Yeah, that's the new thing. That's what I was going to bring up earlier, but I figured just because it was Levi that posted it, how he got a set of Mickey Thompsons, I wasn't going to give him any crap because he always gets butthurt when I talk about China stuff. But,
I'll talk about it all day. I don't care.
I just don't. Didn't want to be in the mood this early, right? But yeah, it seems to me that, and here's the funny thing. Mickey Thompson tires, all right. MT doesn't technically stand for Mickey Thompson. That's what everybody calls them. Mickey Thompson used to have a business called Mickey Thompson Enterprises, and Mickey Thompson was running Indy cars, and they couldn't find a tire that they liked. You remember like the 13-inch wide, 13-inch wheel? It was like, I would have to say like early 60s when they went from the big, tall, car tire, bias ply car tire down to the short, fat, wide tires. That was Mickey Thompson, and he couldn't find a company to make his tires. So he created a company, and that actually is like, I don't know what the guy's name is, like McMillan and Thompson or McKee and Thompson, but that's what those tires actually stand for. And then everyone over the years just started calling him Mickey Thompson because of his Mickey Thompson Enterprises had valve covers that said MT on them, right? So, so it got translated over to that, but it's actually like another guy's name, and he's still alive. Mickey Thompson was murdered in 1987.
Yep. McCreary's. Boy, that's a blast from the past.
McCreary
Val 360 Jimmy.
Yeah, some recaps.
Yeah.
If you want to see a set of McCreary recaps, you scroll over to a movie called Tooling Blacktop. And the 55 Chevy that they're running has a set of McCreary recaps on it.
Levi doesn't care where it's made as long as it's good. Well, I do. I want our country to come back. I want the jobs here. I want the tires made here. I want the parts made here. Huge tariffs. That's what I want.
That's because Levi's young and he didn't see what it was like when everything was made here, right? When my neighbor had a job and he was living okay, it wasn't a big problem. But now, since my neighbor no longer have a job and he's got to go work for whatever side scraps he can get, the whole world kind of it's the whole thing. The neighbors on both sides, everyone around is starting to do the same thing, where you realize that every job that you used to have is completely gone. You have to draw the line somewhere, right? And that's where I draw it. I don't draw it like, I figured, okay, if I draw the line on China, I need to draw the line on India. I need to draw the line on Japan. I need to draw the line on all of them. It needs to be made in America. And so that's what I did. Like the motor, my T-bird is all American made parts. I went out of my way to find American made stuff to put in the thing. And I spent a lot more money.
My rule is that if I want to buy something that is from somebody else's culture, right? Like if I want to buy a samurai sword, I want to buy one made in Japan because that's their product, right? I wouldn't want to buy an American samurai sword ripping off a Japanese design. What Chinese products are of the Chinese culture? Everything they have is just a cheap copy of our stuff that took a job away from here to give to themselves. John Cope said that there was a Chinese transmission company wanting to make a Chinese case, and they're in some kind of forum. They said, we're going to buy this American case, and we're just going to copy all the dimensions and rip it off and sell it cheaper.
Right. But see, that's somebody's life.
That.
Well, that's somebody's life's work.
That's exactly right. And they want to steal. They just tell you, we're going to steal this. We're going to sell a cheaper alternative. We're going to buy one of his. We're going to measure it all up. We're going to knock it off, make it cheap, and sell it. And put him out.
And if you wanted to see that, and if you wanted to see that in full bloom, just back up the tape 10 years ago, okay? And everybody started thinking about Speedmaster parts. Speedmaster parts started flooding the market with all these cheap intake manifolds that were like
Yep.
stupid cheap money. And you're like, what
Yep.
in the world? I can get a
Yep.
tunnel ram for a 351 Cleveland for $180.
Yep.
No, that was Vic Edelbrock's life work. And they bought one and they copied the entire thing and pooped a bazillion of them out.
Yep.
And everybody bought them up because they were half the price of Vic Edelbrock stuff. But that's Vic Edelbrock's life's work.
Mhm.
Right. So his time has to be like, that's what you pay for. Is when you make a product, you're paying for the time and the experience and the expertise.
That's
You're
right.
not paying for the qualities of the material. Any idiot can make the same quality material. It's just freaking cast aluminum. But you're paying for the guy's knowledge and his experience, and he went out of his way to make one when nobody else did. And then this company flies in, they buy one of them for $380. They fly back to their country where the guy works for free, or they shoot him in the face, and they poop a million of them out. And so, of course, they're cheap. But that's just my take on it. I think, like there's a lot of folks in here from Australia, New Zealand, and stuff like that. They need to do the same thing in their own country. Start supporting your local, manufacturers. It doesn't have to be American made, but if you have any pride in your own country, and there's nothing wrong with having pride in your country, support the people around you, because one day that person might not even have a job, right? I mean, it's literally how I look at it. And I was a subject of it. When I graduated high school, I had to fight this stupid thing called NAFTA. All right.
Oh
NAFTA
gosh,
was
I
the
remember
dumbest
NAFTA
thing that
well.
ever happened to our country.
Ross Perot said it right. He said that was the giant sucking sound of jobs going south of the border, and he was exactly right.
That's exactly what happened too. And he called it on the presidential campaign and during the debate.
Yep.
Right? Oh,
Yep.
we're going to get this thing passed through. That was George H.W. Bush. He's all about America. If he was, he wouldn't have passed the damn thing.
32 years ago, and everyone's forgotten.
Yeah. And here's the sad part. That was my first week in the job market. I had to fight NAFTA. Hey, can I get a job? No, we're packing up and moving everything to Mexico. Why? Oh, because it's cheaper labor down there. Yeah, but I need a job still, right? I just graduated high school. So, yeah. So 2Hex Jeff is in here, says the problem with China is they rip off designs, have quality issues, and are commie bastards. Okay,
Yeah,
well, that's pretty much straightforward.
Yeah.
Let's see. Blue Grit Garage says, I just recently got rid of a set of Firestone 500s on some rims. They work good for holding my canopy down in the wind. Yeah, they're probably pretty heavy.
Blue Grit said, I thought it was Clinton passed NAFTA. I believe you're right, because that was from the 92 presidential debate. And he was president from January 93 through 2001, January 2001. So that is correct. Perot warned everybody.
He did, and he even said it during that debate.
Mm-hmm.
He said it right plain as day. He said that would be the biggest vacuum sucking sound to the south of America that you will ever hear, or something like that. Like just like what John said, essentially that it was going to suck every job south of the border, and it did that. If you don't believe me, look at 1991. Where was Chrysler engines made? Okay, 1998. Where were Chrysler engines made?
A lot of jobs vanished because of that.
Yeah. Let's see. Blue Grit Garage. I thought Bill Clinton passed NAFTA. I believe it was one of those things that, like, when we're doing the turnover, like the handshake. So I believe what it was, and it could have been Bill Clinton that passed it. I don't know who it got lumped on. Okay, I'll be honest with you, but George H.W. Bush had to draft the thing, and I believe what happened was it was a handshake deal out the door, right? So that way it made Bill Clinton look clean, and you could pass it off as this guy gave it to me. I don't know, one of the two, somebody in our government, how about that, passed that sucker, and it hammered Americans hard. Especially in the Midwest. The Midwest used to be the manufacturing powerhouse of the United States, if you did not know that. Yes, 100% two hacks, Jeff. NAFTA made corrupt governments rich and workers more poor.
Ron Ward, I believe he stayed in the race, but he got a couple of electoral votes, just a couple, and he split it up enough that Clinton won.
Right. I think that was the whole point was, I don't know if it was the point. Perot wanted to do the same thing. Like he was very much similar to what Donald Trump is today, I guess. I don't know. He was a businessman that wanted to fix American business and industry. And
he was not a career politician. That was a very interesting thing about him.
No, and then, but see, he was like 2 degrees off the Republican bill. And so what it did was, hey, it took all the people that were 2 degrees off of the Republican bill and pulled them away from the Republicans and put them in a whole nother category, leaving all the votes for, you split it up.
Levi talking about tariffs on foreign imports. I have heard that Australia has big tariffs on foreign cars, and that you can have anything you want, but you're just going to pay a huge amount for that tariff.
Right. And we used to have huge tariffs on stuff. It was called import tax.
Right.
On stuff. That's why, okay, if you really want to look at the big picture, go back to 1991. Okay. 1989 to 1990, Hondas, there was very few of them on the road. Why? Because the car cost just as much as an American car.
Yeah.
Right. And there was no gain. In 1992-ish, they pulled all the tariffs off of that stuff. The Japanese started flooding the market. And what happened? All these American auto industries started shrinking down in size. Why? Because we screwed Peter to pay Paul. And now Paul's standing there at the door with his checkbook and having you sign. You're having to pay up, sucker. And that's where we're at today.
Val 360 Jimmy says the problem is you buy something you think is made in the USA or Australia, but it comes with a made in China sticker like my LS Holly valve covers. Well, you got to really watch that. What they use on packaging now is what I call weasel words or weasel language. Right. It'll say assembled in USA and then in fine print from Global Components. That's a really fancy way of saying it's made in China, and they put a bolt in it here.
Well, so the other one that I see all the time is you go onto eBay and you're looking at all the crap on eBay, and it'll have this big USA with a flag on it. It doesn't say made in the USA. It just has a flag that says USA. There's nothing wrong with putting that on your ad. But here's the thing. That part had nothing USA except for you buying it, right? Like there's literally nothing on that. Anything that you buy that's chrome today, guaranteed is made overseas. Guaranteed. Almost 100%, right? And I'll tell you why. The EPA has cracked down so hard on all of the entire process of chroming that there's only about 4 chromers in the United States.
Yeah.
There's literally like 4 chromers.
Yep.
And
it costs more to get a set of wheels re-chromed than it does to buy a set of new wheels that are chromed in a country like China where there's no regulations on the chrome. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. Yeah.
It should never cost us more to take a heavy set of steel wheels, put it on a boat, and send it 8,000 or 10,000 miles than it does to make them here. But that's what our regulations have done. That's one of many things they've done. Look at the cost of paint, and all that's just regulatory. I see Barkley Schmidt is in the house. Hello, Barkley. How's it going, sir?
Here he is. Oh, well, let's see here. Blue Grit Garage says, Ross Perot cared for his workers, did not send some commandos into a foreign country to get some... did he not send some commandos into a foreign country to get some out of his workers out? He did do that. He paid for them out of his own pocket to get those people out of there. And that was... when was that? That was the 80s in the Contras? I think so.
Sounds familiar.
Yep, where the U.S. government wouldn't do anything, so he hired those commandos to go in there and get them out.
Val 360 Jimmy says the tariffs were designed to get people to buy Aussie-made cars, but we don't make cars anymore, but we still pay tariffs. Well, you should start making cars again. You know what that reminds me of? So Val 360 Jimmy says they had the tariff, right? And then they quit making the cars here. So it's like, okay, it worked, but it worked so well that we're not going to get rid of this temporary tax, right? It's kind of
Right.
like the turnpike in West Virginia. They were told in the 70s, when I was a little kid, it was supposed to be temporary just to pay for the cost of the road, right? 50 years later, I think they just had the 50th anniversary of that thing. The road tolls are still there. Now there's 3 instead of 2. And instead of being $1.25 and 25 cents, they're $4.25 each. So each way you go on that 30-mile stretch costs you whatever that works out to, like $13. Nothing temporary about it. You'll keep those tariffs forever.
Yeah, forever. None of the stuff ever goes away. So Levi's saying to me, the next 4 years ought to be an interesting time to be alive. I think it's probably going to be the most prosperous time to be alive in America. When I'm telling you, that's the thing about John and I are about the same age.
You got to
Generation X. Okay. We were young when America was fantastic, when things were great, right? You could live like a house would cost less than, say, 30 grand. You have a nice house for 30 grand or less, right? You had some property. You could afford, to live off like $500 a week, right?
Oh, yeah.
Easy.
Oh, yeah.
Today, ever since I have essentially graduated from high school, it has been runaway printing money, devaluing everything that we had. Like the biggest scam I ever seen in my life, and John's in real estate, maybe he can elaborate on it more. The way I look at it is this. When people say home equity, okay, home equity is a scam. Home equity is not really equity. It literally is you bought a house at a valued price at a set time and place in time. Okay. Say you bought it in 2018. Okay. And in 2020, you have so much home equity. Was it really equity? Or was it we printed the money, devalued your money, and then it cost more? And then you're locked in at this point, right? So now you have this much equity. That's the difference what it was when we printed money. And all you're doing when you print money, you want to know what's terrible about printing money. I know this is way off tech talk, but when you print money, you rob people's IRA. Okay, their 401k, their IRA, their retirement accounts, because that money's sitting in there with a said value from a certain time and place. And then you print money, and that doesn't go up. It still has the same amount of money in it, but you've taken money from them essentially because their money's not worth as much. So that was the biggest scam. If you look at the 90s, that was the whole thing, the big push for the IRAs. And then when the IRAs started slowing down, they came out with a new one called a Roth IRA. And you could transfer the Roth IRA over, and it was no tax. And if people were looking at the tax, they were looking at the money right in front of them, but they weren't looking at the long term. The long term was to print a whole pile of money and make yours worth less, right? And that's what happened with the houses. That's what happened with all of it. It was all just a scam. We all got robbed, and everybody, pretty much just bellied up to the bar and took a punch in the face. So,
Levi, house is a good investment. House is a good investment.
You cannot lose money on a house. You cannot.
You'll do good buying a house.
I'll tell you what the most interesting thing that I've seen, and I don't know how it even works. There's a set value it would cost to buy something in gold, because you can buy gold as a legal tender, right? Like, this is how much it's worth. You can buy the same amount of gold, no matter what the dollar value is. You could have bought a house in 1970 for X amount of gold, let's say, 3 square inches. And today, if you buy a house, it's 3 square inches of gold. It's just the value of the gold has gone up, but it's still the same.
The value of the gold is the same. It's the money it takes to buy it has increased because there's no value in our money.
Right. So that's the interesting thing about all that stuff.
Well, Burns, it shouldn't be 10 times in 40 years, but it does compound. They say you should allow 4% a year for inflation.
Okay. Mohawk 62 was asking, was Barkley going to be selling fuel again this year at the No Name Nationals? Well, I hope so. He seems to provide a majority of the fuel for just about everybody that shows up.
Yeah, we'll be having fuel again. Levi, that is incorrect. You get $250,000 capital gains relief for single, $500,000 for married. So that is incorrect. You should buy when you have 20% to put down, 15-year note, buy a house, and do it when you have no other debt and pay it off. And I don't base that on just crap I've read on the internet. I base it on that I own 4, and I've helped people buy and sell hundreds of them. And I've helped people become millionaires. You ever see the shirt I wear, C.D. Hubbard, like towing and heavy equipment? He has big rotators and stuff. I've been his agent for life, and he is a self-made millionaire. I've helped him with every property deal he's ever done. Real estate can be great. And your best investment is your primary house.
Yeah, and it's not entirely true. You're taxed if you sell the home and you don't buy another one, right?
But not on your primary residence. On your primary residence, you've got up to $500,000 capital gains relief if you're married.
Right.
Yeah,
you can write off the majority of it.
But you can also, even if it's investment property, you can put it to 1031. So you don't necessarily have to pay those heavy taxes. I have a friend who's 81 years old, and he's been doing this for decades. So
let's see.
That's why you get a good agent.
That's what it's all about. That's why you pay the money for them.
That's right.
The whole way that is that people don't look at it when you get like a real estate agent or somebody's like a lawyer, right? The whole idea is you pay this person, let's say 10 grand when you buy a home. Okay. And you look at it and you go, oh, 10 grand. I got ripped off 10 grand. No, what should have happened is that person should have saved you 10 grand and paid for themselves.
Oh yeah.
That's how that works.
We see stories all the time of people paying expensive lessons trying to save money doing that.
Yeah.
Barkley says you can do bad on a house and a bad marriage. Yes, you can.
Let's see. Magnesium blocks. Let's talk about that.
Oh, goodness. So the Volkswagen AS41 magnesium block for beetles, people would use them when they throw a rod or get messed up. They'd use them for bonfires.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
That's terrible. Because you can really, you can't really remachine, but you could definitely melt that down.
Well, they replace the jugs, but when the case itself gets wonky because they're not real stiff, or if it gets a crack in it and they're magnesium, like I said, AS41 are the magnesium cases, and those things will make great bonfires. AS21 are all aluminum; they won't.
Yeah,
that's your tip. If you ever see just a pile of Volkswagen garbage laying in the woods and it's that case, there's your bonfire.
Well, isn't that the early ones, the magnesium case ones?
I don't think so. I can't remember what years they ran them. Not off the top of my head.
Let's see.
Either that or old magnesium wheel that's hit a curb or something.
Oh, dude, do you know how much magnesium wheels are going for these days and age?
Good a fortune.
Oh my gosh, there was some at a swap meet up in Nashville. Was $2,500 for the set of front wheels, magnesium front wheels, true spoke 60 style magnesium front wheel.
Barkley, I will tell you again. I know it's you can say it's a conflict of interest to say it, but registering goes a long way. People put you on the radar. And also, we're going to have a content creator workshop here in the next 2 weeks. And that's a big deal. A short every day is a big deal. These are things you want.
So, hey, so Berkeley says you can do bad. You can do bad on a house in a bad marriage. And I'm about to get a whole mouthful of that. So.
Yeah, it happens. It happens.
Let's see. Clint says my buddies lit a bug motor on fire at the beach and they couldn't put it out. No, you can't put it out till it's all completely burned away.
Oh no, yeah, that's what they had was a magnesium case motor, right?
So in the Navy world, they call that the class Delta fire. That's the unextinguishable fire. It creates its own oxygen, will continue to burn until there isn't a single molecule of it left.
That's a class D fire is magnesium?
Yeah, class D, class Delta. Yep. And the reason why we had it was like aircraft carriers used to have aircraft with wheels made out of magnesium.
Mm-hmm. Remember, too, a lot of those old cars had magnesium intakes on them, too.
Let's see. Levi says, here's my question. Magnesium blocks don't really even sound like a good idea. They sound like a fantastic idea. Wait till you pick one up.
They weigh nothing.
Yes.
You ever pick up a wheel at a swap meet that just feels like it's made out of paper? That's a
You could throw it in
magnesium
the
wheel.
air.
You
Yeah.
don't see them anymore.
Throw it in the air. There was, I remember seeing, there was some 351 Cleveland Ford NASCAR magnesium intake manifolds from the 80s at the swap meet in San Diego. Right. And I was walking around and I'm looking at him like, man, that sucker's awfully gray. And I pick it up and I literally could have thrown it into my truck bed from there. Like,
but you don't see it anymore. I mean, I used to remember going to swap meets. I used to see an intaker wheels occasionally. Not anymore.
Yeah, I know they're getting to be really hard to find.
Now, Chrysler in 1969 had some magnesium wheels that were made by Kelsey Hayes that were recalled. And they're really weird looking. They don't look like any other Mopar wheel you've seen. They almost look kind of modern. They had 5 slots and recessed lugs, and they recalled them because they would crack. But they call them the recall wheels now. But I saw a set of those at Carlisle, and man, he wanted a fortune. I think $2,000 for the set. So
let's see. Okay, so Levi's asking, is it expensive then? Because most race motors are aluminum. Seems crazy. No. The magnesium is lighter than aluminum and stronger than aluminum, right? And that was the whole point. The problem with magnesium is the fire, right? It's not necessarily a fire hazard having magnesium. What it is when they machine it, the magnesium exposed to air can technically catch on fire, right? When they're machining it. So the finer they machine it, the more possibility it has to catch on fire. And I think what killed it was the crazy costs being outweighed by the fire hazard that was creating by machining this stuff. And so it was light, it was durable, but man, I'm telling you, and the worst thing you could have done is start making nitro motors out of this stuff, right? Because they blow up and the oil would blow down the side of the block and catch the headers. And next thing you got a big fire and you can't put it out. And the block is made of magnesium and you cannot put it out once the block catches on fire.
Blue Grit was at Indy when Danny Ungius, is that how you say that? Hit the wall beside us. The magnesium wheel looked like a bright white camera flash. Oh, I bet.
That's Danny Ungius.
Yeah, the fire starters have magnesium in them that you scrape. So that's exactly what he did with his magnesium wheel.
So Ron Ward says, here's some interesting fact for you. Krager made a magnesium root style blower case. And that's changing from aluminum. So there has to be some significant savings in weight because you're changing from aluminum case to a magnesium case.
I think that titanium is kind of
replaced it all.
Kind of the exotic thing that took the path that got away from magnesium, went that way.
So Clint Street Machine says, I believe many Panteras came with magnesium wheels, and they could have because they were in the era when magnesium was the ticket. That literally was the ticket.
Levi is saying that he's heard methanol can eat magnesium. Yeah, well, methanol eats anything.
Methanol would pretty much break down anything except for stainless steel.
Yeah. Buick Smith saying, is thermite a Class D fire also? I don't know.
I'm not sure about thermite. There's a few things. There was a few things called monopropellants that was fuels that were based that created their own oxygen, just like nitromethane is a monopropellant, creates its own oxygen. And when it catches on fire, you want to look out. But of course, nitromethane catches on fire, it's a big, huge explosion.
Yeah. Ron saying that Krager realized a weight savings to magnesium case, but increased stability. As Dallas said, lighter and stronger.
Yeah, that stuff is serious, but there was a limited amount of it, and it was very hard to machine.
It's corrosive too, so if you leave it out exposed to the elements, that stuff will get white and corroded quickly.
That's how you identify them at the swap meet.
Yeah.
The easy thing to do is you go down the swap meet road where they got all the wheels and tires and stuff, and you pick out the wheel that looks the darkest, grayest color that you've seen in the entire place, and guarantee that wheel is probably magnesium.
Then you pick it up. Yep.
Yeah, throw it in your truck bed from right there. But I don't know what else they used to make out of magnesium. There was transmission cases, engine blocks. I don't think cylinder heads were ever made out of it.
Intakes. A lot of
intake manifolds were, wheels were, and then there I've heard, I don't know if that's true, but there's been center sections made like 9-inch Fords and
I can see that.
9.3 Pontiac Olds.
Mrs. Catchy, tungsten vanadium. That's a heavy metal. Tungsten. Tungsten, I believe, is the heaviest metal that we can have any access to.
Here's your magnesium wheels. Ron saying that the vintage Halibrands and early welded sprint wheels are some of the coolest looking wheels ever. They are.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Ron saying that
exactly.
Zeekr offered magnesium center sections. That would be the big ticket for a front loader rear end, where all the weight's at is that one cast piece that's robust as hell. If you made it out of magnesium, golly, did you save 85 pounds?
Wouldn't you feel better hoisting that in and out if it was magnesium?
I wouldn't even sweat it. Like, don't bother with the jack. Just stick it in. Give me the bolts or the studs or the nuts or whatever you had. Let's see. What is this? AL Power Potassium Permanganate?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know either.
Makes me think pomegranate though. So thanks for making me hungry. Max Wedge Dick Dastard is asking, anyone know what the adapter thing you can buy to put an open different for posi? What, substitute an open? You talking about a mini spool? I'm not sure what he's talking about.
It may be a mini spool or a spool.
Well, the mini spool, when I'm thinking adapter thing, I don't know. If you can clarify that, Max Wedge.
Oh, wow. I didn't know this. Dizzy Easy saying the keystones that came on early GT Mustangs were magnesium.
Ron saying right. Krager offered magnesium valve. I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, the neat thing is that Krager building used to be right there in San Diego. Man, they got rid of that sucker. That company was, I don't know what hurt them. Was it the sale of the company or the death of the guy that created the company? I don't know. But golly, were they steeped in drag racing history in the 60s and 70s. I wonder what ended Krager. That's something I need to probably look up.
I don't know. But I'll tell you what, if anyone knows off the top of their head, it's going to be Ron Ward.
Yeah, probably so.
That's the kind of thing. Ron's got a lot of knowledge about this kind of stuff.
Well, I'll tell you I'll throw some knowledge out there that I know. Okay, something that's cool in drag racing history. Everyone's familiar with like Hearst Oldsmobiles and stuff like that. Did you know that George Hearst, the guy that created the company, was the one that created the Jaws of Life?
Huh.
Yeah. Interesting. And the only reason I knew that is because on Navy ships, that's all we ever had was the Hearst Jaws of Life on the ship. And they did say Hearst on them. And I'm like, man, that's like, I wonder if that's the shifter company. And one day I looked it up and it was literally George Hearst's company that made that.
Ron says Krager was in California and succumbed to taxation and EPA regulation.
I'll bet you that's 100% true.
So the government killed Krager.
Yeah, the government killed him off. The EPA did under environmentally friendly emissions issues. So I'm telling you, man, any of the federal government 3-lettered word companies or not companies, but 3-letter word entities,
agencies.
They're not elected, and they have no business dictating law. They have none, right? Matter of fact, there has just been an overturned ruling on that. So if you've ever been hurt by the EPA, like let's say you ran a diesel business and the EPA came in and shut you down, now is the time to go ahead and file your lawsuit because the EPA, their ruling just got reversed a month ago. It was about the EPA there was a small oil rig company out of like Texas or somewhere, Louisiana, somewhere around there, that they were fined $400 a day every time their boats went out. I think it might have been a fishing outfit. But it was fined $400 a day by the EPA every time one of their boats left. And come to find out, that's overstepping their bounds. It's not for them to determine what the law dictates. It's for them to enforce the things that the federal government deems what the law is. So that's where it needs to be brought to federal court and litigated on what it's supposed to actually mean in their case. So they overstep their bounds.
Hey, before we move on to the next tech question, I'm going to get a gratuitous plug in here for those of you who might wonder. These really nice looking banners are in the store right now.
Hey.
Yeah, buddy. $30 including shipping. All the proceeds go to the No Name Nationals. They are in stock, ready to ship. And I shipped out 16 of them this week. So they are here now. Anyway, just throwing that out there. In Dallas, you've got one. You'll have it any day.
I was wearing it this afternoon. Just that. I'll send you a picture.
You can make a skirt out of it. It's 44 inches long. So.
Oh, there you go. All thrust, no rudders. Put it up here. Chevron difference. Supreme Court decision. The deference. Sorry. Look at this. Ron Ward says, I was gifted a copy of Edelbrock Made in the USA by Cami Edelbrock when I worked for NMCA. I was really bummed to see it was printed in China. That's the world for you. Man, how could that be cheaper to send that overseas, have it printed, have it brought here on a boat, right? How is that feasible? I mean, how is that even possible?
It says a lot. I got to tell you, though, I'd be willing to bet that of all the sanctioning bodies there are right now, the one that strives the hardest to use the most American-made everything is this one. Well, I think that's fair to say.
I did all of this stuff, everything, the printed documentation, the shirts, the hats, everything was all made locally, made in the USA, and I wouldn't buy any T-shirts that were not made in the USA.
These banners right here are made in Christiansburg, Virginia.
Well,
they are all the hemming, all the grommets are done by hand in Christiansburg, Virginia, by a guy named Kevin.
Well, I can't say that's true about what I just said.
Our shirts, the embroidery on our shirts here are done in Arizona.
Tony's Hot Rod Garage, right?
Stickers done in Iowa, and the T-shirts are done in Iowa. We make every effort to shop American first.
Yeah, I did not always have made in the USA shirts. Sometimes, especially when everything got to the crisis, like what was that? What do they call it? I don't remember what they even call it now. When you didn't have any inventory of nothing because everybody was shut down for like 2 years during like 2020 and stuff like that. I just tried to keep it from made in China at that point. So I got some like Bangladeshi T-shirts or India or whatever I could get at that time. And I do remember my wife and I had went into the T-shirt guy's shop and I was trying to order T-shirts. He's like, dude, I could make you the biggest deal you ever seen. I'm like, great, because that's why I'm here today. We're going to make the biggest deal you ever seen. And he's like, I can make you any T-shirt you want as long as it's red. It's the only thing I can get. And I'm like, done. So, yeah. Let's see. Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah. Barclays got it. The supply crisis. Yep.
You know what? So this part of the country right here, especially when you go a little farther south into North Carolina, is textile country. And,
really?
And in this area here, there's all kinds. Like if you go to Pulaski, which is just west of me, you see all kinds of abandoned furniture factories. They used to make a lot of furniture, and it's gone now. All that just went to China. All the textiles that are about an hour south of here in Greensboro are just gone now. All those textile jobs went to China. And so the older I get, the more of this I've watched, the more determined I don't want to be part of the problem.
That's exactly what I would looked at it. That's exactly how I looked.
And Kim is right. Those red shirts look great. I love them.
Well, I had to spend the entire day in there coming up with a design that would work with the red shirt, but it worked out.
I like Ron's comment. Maybe we should entice the racers to buy Walla Walla war whistles and Boston boost builders instead of Chinese. I like that. Levi's turbos were made in the USA. Well, that's good.
Oh, Ron said he's proudly wore his red AHRA shirt this past weekend. Sweet. Well, thanks, Ron.
I love it. I have to.
Eventually, one day when I find out what kind of finances I do have left, I might be able to do something with the AHRA again.
High Point was the furniture capital of the world. I would not doubt that. And it's all just gone now. It's all just gone now because it's all gone to China. If you watch old episodes of The Price is Right from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they gave away all kinds of American-made furniture on that show. It's gone now.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I literally, when I was doing the AHRA, I would only take, okay, this may sound stupid because it was literally cut my own nose off to spite my face, but I would not take a sponsorship from anybody for the association unless their products were made in the USA. And like I had people on, and I'm not going to list them off because it makes companies look bad, right? They come to you, they want to do some kind of sponsorship deal, and you're like, great, where's your guys' products made? Oh, well, we import them all from overseas. Okay, I can't do it, right? And it's like, or there was some of them that I went to meet them face to face, thinking that they were made in the United States, and then all of a sudden you find out it's like, hey, why are you guys bringing in carburetors from overseas? Oh, that's where we have them made. Oh, you got to be kidding me, right? Like, I'm out of here, and I leave.
I see a typo in Dizzy's comment there. I think it's supposed to read, the company's labor unions all crippled them with demands to where they couldn't be competitive with Chinese prices. I think that's a typo.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make this whole thing political tonight, Josh.
No, it's about our country.
It is, and the unfortunate thing is we're just watching. We're just like the Chinese turbos. The only time I recommend Chinese turbos when the entire car budget is less than $2,000. They're cheap, fun, throwaway fun, but still, okay. The turbos are no different. That's Garrett Company's life work, right? They made something that nobody else had. Do you know how hard it is to create something that no one else had? Nobody from day one. That is the one thing about YouTube that you should all be able to respect, is that you're making content that no one else has. Now, how would you feel if your fucking neighbor came over and pirated your show? You're going to be mad. Why are people not freaking rioting in the streets and hanging people? I've never understood it. We're too nice about it. We're not putting it in terms that people understand. And that's the thing I don't like about it. It is so hard to make something from nothing. And then these people buy one, they reproduce it, and they sell it as yours. Do you not remember, not even 6 months ago, Summit Racing shut down a company that was Chinese products that literally had the Brian Tooley Racing logo printed on the freaking product? They're stealing the man's life work.
Cope said these Chinese guys were stealing this transmission case design, just telling it outright. They don't care, because in this country, what would happen is somebody would be sued for patent infringement. That's what would happen here. But the Chinese, no one cares. They just do what they want to do.
Right. And if you want to know how much they don't care, just go back and read a history book. There was a guy named Mousy Tongue. He wanted his way, and he almost pretty much assassinated half his country to do it. Starved him to death. Okay. I'm going to get off this political tirade. It pisses me off that, like, yeah, the stuff is cheap. It doesn't matter how cheap it is. You shouldn't buy it. Don't buy it. Just go on your way not to buy it. Let's see. Dave Norman says motorcycle or modern race motorcycle cases are made of MMC damn near plastic. It's probably the same thing that like the LS intake manifolds were made of from the factory. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. Like, man, that's a weird looking intake manifold, and the sucker was plastic. Bark to say it louder for the ones in the back. I must have been getting pretty loud. I just don't like. I don't like people ripping people off, and I don't like people stealing. That was the whole thing when the deal went sideways. One of the previous Tech Talk show I was on, when things went sideways there, was because there was some guy, I don't remember his name, but he was using somebody else's pedestal for leverage for himself. And I hate when people are crooked. And there's nothing you can literally do about it, but it's wrong and it's immoral. And the wrong and immoral things should be like pointed out, and they should be chastised instead of welcoming, embraced.
If you can't tell, Dallas and I both love our country. We're both very much nationalists.
I mean,
unapologetic. Well, look at the No Name Nationals logo. I mean, isn't it kind of obvious?
23 years in the Navy. Of course, I love our country. Right?
Yeah.
But I just hate to see people give stuff away, especially things that are hard earned and hard work. You know, that's what made America great, was the ingenuity, the people that were willing to think their way around the problem and make it happen for a very reasonable budget. And that's what you don't see today in racing classes. I've always wondered what would happen if the Dragmaster chassis was mass produced today still. Would people have the ability to think outside the box and just build something that wasn't an LS motor out of a truck in a Dragmaster chassis? Would they build something that was unique and fun to them? And that's what was cool about the 60s, is there was so many products available from the aftermarket. You could literally create whatever you wanted. And that's what I really like about hot rodding. That's where it was really in its big throes, was when people could create something out of nothing, right? You always look back on it now and you go, oh man, why would somebody race a Cadillac engine? Because at the time, the Cadillac was the hottest damn thing on the market. And you bought speed parts for it, right? You made it go faster. And then it made it, what happened is it became obsolete. The engineering grew so fast, it became obsolete within a couple of years. And then, but you still wonder, why did somebody build a 303 Oldsmobile? Because it was the hottest ticket going at the time.
Dallas, you'll see Dizzy down there. You will be happy to know that Dizzy and I agreed on something last week. I know, isn't that wild? I said that if I saw somebody kneeling for the national anthem at the No Name Nationals, I'd throw them out, and Dizzy said he'd help me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that great? So Dizzy and I agree on next to nothing, but we agree on that.
Well, no, Dizzy's...
I like that.
Dizzy actually served a few years in the Navy.
I know, and
he was like a radioman. And that's the first thing that he and I learned about each other right up front, was that we were both in the Navy, right? And then it's like, okay, Dizzy, our politics don't agree, but I mean, we're still pretty much cut from the same materials.
That's good stuff.
Let's see.
This Catchy says that iron takes longer to heat and weighs more, but in all this same iron makes more power.
We're talking about cylinder heads, I'm assuming.
I guess.
Yeah, that's, what I used to hear was the way it was, like, the way it was explained to me was cast iron cylinder heads, the heat retained in the cylinder head becomes a lubricant for the gases to leave or enter. That's
heat is the lubrication of exhaust.
Yep. Okay.
Aluminum is more forgiving on detonation. That's why you can run about a point more compression with aluminum heads.
Levi's saying the LS and Coyotes are the next big thing. Dallas, what would build V8 wise without those? No manufacturer makes. Those will never be the big thing. Those things are never, I mean, like, they're the big thing now amongst the 28-10-5 guys, but you'll see that they'll never be the big thing. And I'll tell you why. They make big power for what they are. Pick any random Coyote motor that you can find. Okay. Any random one on Marketplace. Buy one. And then whatever that costs you, I'll take that same amount of money and I'll pick something completely obscure from the 60s and I will smoke the crap out of that Coyote, right? Because that's the problem with them is they're so costly. They require so much. The early stuff is all in one package. Literally, it had a points distributor, it had a carburetor. It just needs a hose and 12 volts to run, right? The Coyote and LS will never be that way unless someone makes, and I know they do, they make a timing chain cover where you can put a distributor on an LS and you can get it to that point. Coyotes will never be like that. Variable valve timing, the timing chains, the oil pump, what is it? The variable valve timing deal that moves based on the oil pump pressure. That stuff is so complicated, so complex, it'll never be in there. I think probably the next biggest thing you're going to see in reality, and I'm sorry, this is probably going to hurt people's feelings, but is a 7.3 Godzilla motor with a distributor on it. I think that's the next big thing that you're going to see. That's the easiest one to deal with.
All the benefits of the Godzilla without all the electronic problems.
Yeah.
You know, I think ultimately what a lot of this comes down to that I think the younger generation misses. They live in a time when you can swipe a credit card for an eBay turbo and you can get an LS, make a lot of power, right? Because the castings are better and all of that. And those big ports in the heads and roller cams and all this stuff. I think that a lot of the exercise is doing a lot of these old school things for the sake of learning with your hands, like the generations before you. There's value in that. Okay. Like people who learn glass blowing now, they don't learn it so that they have different pieces of glass for their house. They want to learn the art of it like people did before they had that. Same thing with potters. Same thing with a lot of these things. Well, in automotive, it has those kind of things too. Like, you know, doing valve jobs by hand, you know, doing your own valve guides and using stones, different angles for the seats. And I think it's pretty cool when people go back to that and honor these things, these practices, and learn that old school hot rodding.
Well, you know, the things that turned me off, like the Coyote. Okay, when the Coyote came out, man, that thing was absolutely killer.
Yeah.
Okay. When it first came out, bang for the buck, man, that thing was wicked. When the diesels, do you remember when the 6.7 diesel started having problems? They had cylinder liner issues, or was it 5.4 supercharged ones? And they had that spray-on chrome liner, cylinder liner. You know what I'm talking about, John?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. When I started hearing that, I'm like, ooh, ugh. And then I found out the Coyote had that. And I never even thought about buying one at that point. It was like, no, if I got to buy one, and you can't bore it, right? Because it's got this funky chromed in cylinder liner thing that's like a plasma moly cylinder liner. And it cost $10,000 to reliner the thing. It was like, nope, I'm done with that. The best thing to do would just be like, go to the machine shop, bore it out, put a sleeve in it for something else, and be done with it.
Yeah. Levi, our A-code says electronics age like milk. Yes, they do.
They do. And the more they have, the more curds you got.
Now, Lout Burns, you are an elder statesman. I believe you're a generation older than Dallas and I. So he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, mostly old parts Ron says I do my own work out of necessity, not as an art. I can't afford for someone else to do it.
It's only getting worse.
That's the whole reason I learned how to do it. I grew up in a poor household. My dad was a carpenter. My mom was a baker. I had two parents that worked. They worked pretty much 12 hours a day, every day, right? Just to afford the basics, because it was what the Ronald Reagan era, 24% interest rate on just about everything, or more, right? Because it wasn't unheard of to have a credit card in the 30s or 40s.
And people made lots of money then, even with those interest rates. People still made great wealth, even with rates like that.
Yep. But I never really, we just made ends meet. And so when I got to like driving age, my dad was always a car guy. I was screwing with stuff. He has Buick race cars, and he made fiberglass parts for him and then sold those. And but he learned how to do everything, all of it himself. He didn't go to some school, learn how to fiberglass parts. He's went and got a job one winter when he got laid off as a carpenter. Getting laid off seems to be like almost like getting a ham sandwich at lunchtime. It's like it comes with the job, right? When there's no work in the wintertime, you get laid off. So he went to work at this boat factory, learned how to hand lay fiberglass, and then came home and built his own fiberglass parts for Buicks because nobody made them. And matter of fact, when I went to the Buick Nationals, I saw 3 sets of doors that he had done, and he stopped making the doors in 1987. 1992, after being laid off for almost a year, he burned all those molds in the driveway. He was so mad at society. But
Blue Grit there said after you put some miles on a mob motor, the cam phasers suck. So our own Andy Wood, Unity Motorsports Garage, he used to have a mod motor world record at one time. And that mod motor is in Micah Monteleone's Fairmont wagon. So if you look on Andy's channel, you'll see it. That wagon, that Fairmont wagon, it has that mod motor in it. That'd be a good one to check out and see what all they've done to it. I know they run a distributor on it.
But if you didn't notice, Andy Wood got out of the new technology
Sure
stuff
did.
to the old. And
now he went to a 351 Windsor with Cleveland style heads.
Yeah, and he got rid of the EFI and went to the carburetor.
And it has carburetors, yeah.
And that's the same thing. Like, I mean, I'm doing the same. I'm just going a little bit slower than Andy. I don't know. I'm just going back to the Buick stuff because I like making my own stuff.
You know, I think it's funny when people think that we're dinosaurs and we don't know how to work on modern stuff. Yeah, I have a certificate in automotive technology. I had to learn all that stuff, OBD2 and up and all that, right? And using computers to tune cars and doing all that weird stuff, you know. My heart's not in any of that. That's not what I want to do, right? I had to learn to do it. That's just not what I want to do. I would much rather be working with a
carburetor. You know what I learned in between those? Well, John, I think you probably learned the same. I learned something in between that. See, I went in the Navy. I was electronics. Well, I was actually a sonar technician. I was an electronics repairman on sonar equipment, right? They talk virtually you got like an electrical engineering degree in school on how to work on stuff because when you're out at sea, you can't just call somebody and have them fix it. You got to fix it right there.
That's right.
Right. So I learned after I went to those schools, I learned the benefit of self-sustainment and simplicity. Okay. There's nothing wrong with simplistic. There's nothing wrong with it. Right. When it fails 1 out of 10 times compared to EFI, like, okay, let's look at it. Let's compare this. I did this one day. You got a carburetor. Your carburetor is like the end all be all of the carbureted world. Okay. That is your computer. That is your injectors. That is your fuel rail. That is your fuel injector regulator. That is the fuel lines that you got to buy. And sometimes it has the damn fuel filter in it. So it's that too. Okay. But for $500, $500 whopping dollars right now, you can go buy a carburetor. Okay. 500. Now you list all those things off, right? Well, I'm sorry. I got to throw in throttle body, right?
Yeah.
Another one on there.
Throttle position sensor.
Right. And then you start the EFI. Now look at the EFI stuff. $500 and I got all these things hanging off of here. 7 things I listed off, right?
Yeah.
But when you buy them in EFI world, you're buying them all separately. Yeah. Your TPS, $48. Your throttle body, $400. Your fuel pump, right? Well, you're not even the pump. I'm sorry. The filter, the fuel filter. Okay. $20. Let's say you get something cheap that you can use that's a mass-produced car piece.
Injectors, $50
Injectors.
each.
Yeah, no, you're not even. Well, yeah, actually, you are. It is probably about that price these days, $50 each, right? It used to be about $200. You can get a set of good injectors. Your fuel rails, $300. Your fuel pressure regulator, $400. And here is the big winner out of all of them. Okay. The computer with the $500 tune that comes along after you buy the computer, right? You got to pay somebody to tune it, or you can tune it yourself and burn your junk up. It's up to you. Carburetor for $500, I have all that stuff.
Clout Burns says you forgot your idle air solenoid in your IAC.
What's the gain? The gain is in overall drag racing performance. It's slower with the EFI than it is with the carburetor. Here's the other thing. It starts nice when it's cold. Well, you know what? I got a hog ass cam in that thing, and it ain't going to start nice no matter what I got running it. It really doesn't. It won't idle. It's a pig because it has zero pressure in the intake manifold, and there's no gain. There's no gain. So the carburetor is really like the winning ticket here, but everybody sold you on this super expensive carburetor. Tons and tons and tons of excessive price, and you got no real gain. My damn race car is EFI, and I have no problems really with it now, but it's taken me a long time to get it sorted out. But I tell you what, it's got a fuel system on there that you could like literally raise the Titanic with. Okay. I needlessly spent a whole bunch of money on something that was no real bang for the buck. It looks cool. You open the hood, man, that really looks badass. It ain't any faster. It'd be 0.2 faster if it was carbureted. So, and Ron saying, don't forget your MacBook Pro computer to tune the damn thing. Exactly. Yeah. Now, where the EFI does pay off, I'm going to let you know. With a carburetor and a turbo setup, they're not all that great. EFI and a turbo setup, they're hammered. They'll hammer it. They'll kill it. Right? EFI has no gains with nitrous oxide over a carbureted application. It really is just the blower and turbo world, and it's not really so much the blower; it's the turbo.
A lot of it, though, is what you have to pick what battles you want to do. Like, I would see when the NMCA was really getting to where it got uber competitive at the end of the 90s and 2000s. That's when we saw all the cool body styles going by the wayside. Tony Christian got rid of the 57 Chevy because the doorstop Firebirds and Camaros were getting 200 miles an hour. We saw people going away from carburetors and going to fuel injection. And you know what happened? The cars got to where they all looked the same. They all got boring and people lost interest. So, yeah, you can always say it's objectively better to be quicker, but I say, no, not really. If you want to be quicker, why don't you just put it in a dragster? Oh, well, wait a minute. That's not really a car. Well, that's what we're talking about. So you have to pick and choose the things that are really important and work within that framework, because if your goal is just always about being faster, why are you even building a car? Build a motorcycle, build a dragster. And so it's all about picking and choosing your battles. To me, I just want to see a carburetor when I raise the hood. I want to see a carburetor that was made in America when I raise the hood. And so if I have to base my whole battle around that, that's what I'll do.
And that's why I always wanted to build. I like building things that nobody else has, right? That's why I got a T-Bird with a cleaver in it. And that's just who I am. I build things that nobody else has, and I want to be different because
that's a good reason to do it.
Well, in a world of S10s and Fox body Mustangs, when you show up and you're like an absolute breath of fresh air, right? Like how many other like all the stuff I've always had has always been Buick off-brand stuff that nobody else had. And it's like, man, why would you spend all that time?
Hey, Ron Ward, in the old days of NMCA, I bet you never had to even look at a car number to know whose car it was.
Oh, no.
Because every car was different. And probably within 15 years, you had to look at the car number because, when there's 35 Fox Mustangs in the field running an LS, how do you tell them apart? They all look,
oh man, I'm tired of hearing this, Levi. Look at this. All right. So you guys what you were saying was correct, because I was going to throw in there was a guy, like when NMCA first came out, there was a guy that I used to absolutely love, right? His name was Chuck Samuel. He had a 65 El Camino.
Yeah.
Right. And he was running in like, what is it, Super Street or Troop Street?
Super Street.
Okay. That car would damn near, like boogie off the line. And it supposedly had a tailgate filled with lead, but that was the benefit of Chuck Samuel running an El Camino over versus this other guy running a new Firebird, right? A new Trans Am, a new Camaro. That was one of the gains that he had. But also, as Levi is punching himself in the face, well, I'm the dummy who built a barge to go fast. One, you don't have a barge. You don't know what a barge really is, because that's not true. Your car is not a barge. It's
It's not a
4,000
Chrysler
pounds.
Imperial.
No, there was guys in NMCA. There used to be a dude, I don't even remember his name, and Ron Ward probably knows who he is. There's a guy who used to have a yellow 67 Impala, right? And I mean, this thing used to leave, and it would have the tire shrunk up in the wheel well, because a 67 Impala had enough wheel well. Is it? Nick Scavo. All right, that's a barge. That's a barge. If you're ever feeling down in the dumps about what you built, Levi, go look at this car. This guy showed up to a freaking gunfight with a penknife.
Didn't he run 3 stages of spray on that thing?
Dude, he handed everybody their ass. It was all about the combo. Oh, was it black? I thought it was yellow.
Yeah, I think I remember that car. I was trying to remember who had it as soon as you said that.
Yeah, don't ever beat yourself up about what you build. It's how you build it. It's putting the effort and time in to make it fast, to make it do what it's supposed to do well. You've just picked a combo that everybody else seems to have, right?
If I recall, he was running 3 stages of nitrous on a 509-inch big block Chevy with killer heads. And that car would run way down in the 8s, like 830s in the quarter.
And this was like 1992.
I'm talking about frightening.
Yeah, that thing used to leave, and it was a stock suspension car. It wasn't back halved, all that stuff. It used to put that wheel in the wheel well. I mean, you could literally take half of Tijuana and sneak them across the border in one wheel well of an Impala, 67 Impala, right? I mean, this thing was a barge. There you go. That's it.
And it would carry those wheels way out past the 60 like that, too.
And that's a 5,000-pound car.
It was a lot. It was heavy. It was a barge. Yeah, I remember this car.
Yeah, the early days of the fastest street car in America shootout and the NMCA was like gloves off. Nobody cared. Literally like street fight to the death. And it was awesome. I loved it. Every bit of it. That's when they first started doing the drives on them, and there would be junk just littering Memphis. Broke down on the side of the road. If you've ever been to Memphis, that's the last place you want to break down.
Yeah.
Right? Especially in some hot ass car, because it gets stolen. Even though it didn't run, it'd still like freaking be stolen and taken. So yeah, those were some awesome times, man. It was like 90 to 95 probably was the height of the fastest street car in America shootout and the NMCA.
Here's where the car was for sale in 2010. By 2010, he had gotten to a 632 that he was running those 3 stages of nitrous on. That's what he was running by then. When I first saw it, it was a 509, but he got to a 632.
Let's see. Levi says, my goal was to be a field filler in big small tire races. LOL, I'm on my way. I don't feel bad about what I built. Every time I get in it, I smile. If it was a Fox, I'd cry. I just like that you're walking the path of something different, but that thing has the potential. It is an A body. It has the potential, and don't beat yourself up about the weight. It weighs the same amount as all the other A bodies. A 72 Chevelle probably doesn't weigh much less than that thing.
What does it weigh, Levi? What's total weight on it without driver?
Brian Brinker hit the nail on the head here. That's one thing that makes the No Name National so special. We really don't need car numbers. No, the guy to ask on here is Ron Ward, because when the first year, John had made him up this nice notebook, right? It had like everybody's car, picture of them, picture of the car, all the information about them if he wanted to talk about you on the microphone. And I'll bet you after 2 times you came up to run the car, Ron knew exactly who you were from when he saw it.
That's because we don't have a field of 60 Fox bodies.
Right. And that's what the junk and the rust and the parts left on the track, that's what it buys you. It buys you something that's memorable.
I can go to the big car show down at Farmington, North Carolina, and I can see a whole row of Barracudas, and I will not remember any specific car when I get home. But the Nacho Cuda, everyone knows that car. I mean,
here's something that you might not have known. The Nacho Cuda's won the car show up in McGregor, Iowa for the past 2 years. Right? Car show. The Nacho Cuda.
Yeah, it should.
Right. Levi says, I don't know now, but it was 3751 without driver, around 3,800 depending on fuel. Yeah, it's not a barge, man, because literally it's probably about the same weight as a 72 Chevelle.
My small block Dodge Dart weighed 3310 with steel hood, steel wheels. I mean,
my T-Bird is considerably lighter than that. I'm not gonna lie, it's considerably lighter than that, but it's a better platform. It's a unibody platform. Full frame cars are always 1,000 pounds more, but if you're talking about light race stuff, you know how many people make fiberglass parts for an 87 Thunderbird?
Yeah, probably not that many.
No, it's actually an 88, but it's still virtually the same thing. But yeah, that hairy glass comes to mind, and if you know what that is, you know that those parts won't fit on an 88 Thunderbird like that street car. He made all the parts for Bob Glidden. So well, hey man, I just so happen to know somebody that has race car scales that scales all 4 wheels. If you just to talk me into like bringing them down for the no-name nationals to weigh, like, say, I don't know, the monkey bikes like we do every year, we could probably just weigh your car up right there in the pits.
Yeah. Ken says, me and my car is memorable. I don't care. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Doesn't sell tickets, but that's cool. You should enjoy your car. That's great.
Let's see. Dust Devil saying there's a chance we'll have 4 Dusters at No Name Nationals this year, but even then, everyone will be different. Well, that's the whole point.
Build what makes you happy. But the thing is, if people are just building what makes them happy, people all like different stuff, and different stuff shows up. And that's
if you want to know how well different works, it's happening in your community. All you do is have to go to YouTube, look up the Holy Goat, and see what Dalton Summit did with a pile of crap, right? It was totally different. Nobody else had anything like it. Why? I mean, that was just, he did it because no one else had anything like it. Well, okay, so Barclay's saying here, weigh my Cutlass, we can take guesses on the land barge. That's the same platform as essentially as Dylan Levi's car here.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, it's the exact same car pretty much. And if you didn't know, Barclay's Cutlass runs like probably the same ETs as your Chevelle, your Laguna. Okay. If you get in, come on, man, make some videos and put them up. That's all you need to do.
Thing is if you do 2 or 3 shorts a day, that will go a long way. All thrust no rudder says a 2014 Challenger's curb weight is plus or minus around 4,000 pounds.
I don't doubt that. Yeah. Those
I think they're heavier than that, actually, a little bit.
The independent rear suspension on them makes them super heavy. I had bought a 2006 GTO that came out of Australia. It was the Holden Monaro. That thing was 3950 delivery weight. 3950. That's one heavy car. Oh, well, say Barclay said he did too today. Well, dude, you're gonna make it. I'm telling you, man, that's what you got to do. Go register so you get some skin in the game, and then it's gonna make you want to make it. So
Dallas registered.
I did.
He did.
Yep. Oh, that was the old when Barclay and I were working with Larry Jeffers at Jeffers Motorsports Park, which is now Skelton Raceway. There used to be Angie, which was Barclay's wife. told me one time, when Larry Jeffers comes in the track, he pays. And I'm like, all right, well, then I'll pay, and it was like, and ever since then, I've kind of been, that's exactly how I do business.
Hey, you know what? I got to say, so last year, Dallas had a lot going on. And I said, listen, man, you need to enjoy this event as a participant with the channel, with your race car and all that good stuff, right? And so Dallas pays his registration fee and all that. And guess what? Dallas ran with everybody, and Dallas did not have his thumb on the scale of anything to benefit him in the stuff he was racing in. And so that's the way there's integrity in the system. He has to give that up to be able to race, and race against people and win. And he did, but he earned it. So it's not like he said, okay, I want to race against them, but I want to carve out the rules for me. He didn't do that.
I didn't change anything. I just showed up with my whatever junk I had, and I was going to run it.
But he did it completely with integrity, and that's cool.
So, due to our, I don't know, communist bashing and all that tonight, the time has flown by. We're already up to almost the 2-hour mark. So we throw all those digs at the red governments in there and making cheap parts, and it burns the time away. So here we are. We're down to essentially 8 minutes left. John, are you going to be live on Friday?
Oh yeah, I'll be live on Friday, and it's always a blast with you guys. We have fun every Friday, and sometimes we'll have guests, different things. Got some new things coming down. It's crunch time. Obviously, it's 56 days and 2 hours and 7 minutes until the 3rd annual No Name Nationals. So there's going to be lots of interesting stuff coming along this time of year. There always is.
Yeah, but now it's getting down to who was that? The guy from Fast and Loud, Richard
Rawlings.
Yes, yeah. Now it's getting down to nut cut time, and you're going to have to start making. You got to start wrapping up the projects if you want them to make the No Name Nationals. So you need to get your stuff together and start testing here within the next couple of weeks, or else it's not going to pay out for you.
Here's the thing: we've seen this 3 years in a row, and it never changes. On New Year's Eve, whatever the Friday is before the new year, that we're going to announce it. Each year, it's been in September, right? It probably won't be radically different for year 4. But the thing is we always know how much time we have. We always know how many subs we have to have. We all know how much work our project needs. So it's never a surprise. It's not like anybody's saying, hey, you got 6 weeks to make this happen. No, it's nothing like that. This one, you can pretty well know how much you have. So
I got 2 weeks coming up, no kids. So now I'm going to start grinding hard. So there's a couple of projects I got to poop out for some other channels on here that are hoping to be at the No Name Nationals. And then I'm going to be on the T-Bird, and we're going to have it fired up, ready to go. And I plan on showing up at the No Name Nationals, win, lose, or draw. I don't care what people say they're coming, because you ain't coming until you show up. Right? That's just how I'm looking at it. And I'm going to hammer on you with a naturally aspirated small block.
Well, there's 2 ways of looking at it. You can look at it as you've got 57 days to go until the 3rd annual, or you can say I got 421 days until the 4th annual. But I will say that, and I've said this for 3 years now, and it's not changed one bit. The people who can do it in 9 months can probably do it in 9 weeks, and the people who can't do it in 9 months probably can't do it in 9 years either. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So, make a plan, make it happen. If you fall short, don't beat yourself up. Just get back on the horse, stay after it. And I've seen a lot of people unstick projects and start making goals and dreams happen, because of this common experience we have of this much time until the No Name Nationals.
Well, and, in all honesty, the very first year, this is when the James and James show announced that they were going to do it.
Yeah, there's SSR Performance, the James and James show, yes.
Yeah, and they came in and freaking hammered everyone. And I even said, there's no way they can make it. They only got like 50-something days left.
They're the exception, not the rule, but they show it's possible.
And in 2 weeks, they had it all the subs. And, man, they were freaking killing it.
There was no time to fart around, and they didn't.
Yep. So Yeah. So if you're always thinking about the Hail Mary, just go back 2 years ago, turn the clock back 2 years ago back, and then find the James and James show and see what they actually did, and just like, rival in what can be done. So, all right. Well, I guess that's it. We're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. You got a live this weekend, John?
I'm
Friday?
live on Friday, and look forward to seeing you guys there. Heads up, it'll be 55 days until the third annual AHRA No Name Nationals on Friday.
That means you get your stuff
It's
done.
getting close. It's getting
Yeah.
close.
Yeah, it's not time enough to buy groceries for the event, but it's definitely time to make
It's
sure you're wrapping up all the loose ends.
That's right. That's right. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. I love seeing you all in Sykeston, and it'll be fun. It'll be fun. That's our family reunion every year, and I look forward to it.
This year, I'm just going to wear the banner, just the banner. So I'll put race pants on when I drive a car, but just the banner. So you guys can't miss
and
me.
Mopars, is your Belvedere going to make it? See, you say we're showing up empty-handed.
Yeah, he said no, right? Showing up empty-handed, but wouldn't miss it. Well, that's good. I hope it, like Bear Rose has not shown up yet with a vehicle, right? Did he register this year, John? Oh, did I lose you, John? Or did I lose me? Well, I guess I'll go ahead and... Man, there he is. He just popped in here. John, I think I lost you, but Bear Rose Garage, are you coming to the No Name Nationals this year, Mr. Bear Rose? Well, we're out.